Hello, and welcome to another episode of Biased Against the Propaganda with your host, Dexter Black. So, on this occasion, I will be discussing the new Brazil variant that's supposed to have everyone so scared. Oh dear, its name is P1, or even worse than the B117 original grandparent or parent of this variant. It's now been narrowed to 379 households, according to Matt Hancock. How on earth he knows that, I don't know. I'd love to know how he worked that out, or his team worked that out, if that's what it is. And apparently there's a mystery person who we know nothing about, who is actually spreading this around. Who we're looking for, like a missing person or a person who's played the lottery and refuses to come forward, and played the lottery, won, and prefers not to come forward and collect their winnings, or maybe doesn't know about it. Very odd. So it looked like to me anyway. What's my point here? Well, my point is this: the groundwork is being set for some more problems in regard to lockdowns and the shutdown of our economy, again as it was in 2020. The groundwork is now being put in place. It's going to be a variant this time that does it. So it's going to be another version. Never mind that we always have variants of viruses, and that's how they live. That's how they continue to survive. It's a known fact. It's not new. But we'll use this sensationalist rhetoric of something all the experts know full well about, and that's the nature of viruses and how they do go on to reproduce and make different variants of themselves. Oh yes, we have to be worried about this new variant now, or this one. Somehow it's in Brazil, or foreign, and new, and more infectious. No real mention of how dangerous it is, though. Must notice, it could be more infectious. It wouldn't actually matter, because what's important is the danger of it. Would it not be? Because there are people walking around with apparently asymptomatic, Some people say. For some, it's just a common cold, and that's just the nature of this thing. But once again, this isn't even looked into by the mainstream media, which is very problematic for many reasons. Now, one of my beefs with the mainstream media, especially the BBC itself, which used to, I don't know if they still have the audacity to do this anymore, but call themselves the impartial BBC, but they're impartial. I think they're ex-impartial, if they ever were in the first place. Actually, a few things they would have been propositions they could have tested of the government if they weren't working in the cahoots with them, which I believe they are, and they're their full mouthpiece disgracefully, and still has the nerve to ask us to pay to support them. I mean, I could do a whole video on that in itself, how embarrassingly ridiculous that is. But anyway, let's stick to the point of discussion today: the Brazilian variant, and well, I'll get back to that in a bit. Had they done their job properly, we would have been seeing questions at their so-called COBRA meetings, when they stand in front of those stupid wooden podiums every time they want to give us a briefing on coronavirus briefing, I think they call it. We would have had questions leveled at them for the so-called, the fake, as it turns out, feisty journalists they have there, taking pictures and asking questions. What would we have heard about? We'd have heard about the PCR tests and their majority false positives, in the 90% range, false positives, to fabricate outbreaks anywhere they are tested. We would have heard about things like this. We would have been asked about things like this. How serious are outbreaks really? Okay, is it worth shutting down or claiming an outbreak ever? Is it? We would have asked other questions as well, such as how the idea of a variant is not actually that ridiculous. It's not that out of the ordinary. In fact, this is the nature of viruses. They all do go on to make their own variants rapidly. I think that there are lots of them. This is the nature of viruses. This is how they live. This is how they go on living. So sensationalist rhetoric about, making sure the idea that the variant is new and just found, whether truthfully or not, is designed to give people, is to keep people on edge and make people on their guard. Because the idea of them going back into lockdowns and all the rest of that should always remain on the cards. Look, this Brazil variant is more, what the word they use is more infectious, which doesn't necessarily mean more dangerous as well, which people need to think about as well. Maybe more infectious, not necessarily more dangerous. If it's not more dangerous, what are you hiding from? Think about it, guys. So my point is, what may really be in the offing for all of us, again, and I'm speaking from a UK perspective, or England perspective, is that what may be in the offing is some more lockdowns, again, on the basis this time of variants, which happen to be more infectious, and on that basis we should all be frightened again, back under our bed sheets, as we were last year in 2020, so that when lockdowns are next imposed, this really would be a built-in pretext to do exactly that, to make people frightened. Variants are the things we need to be frightened of, and then we're saying it now. It's in the offing. We're seeing signs of that kind of entity around. This will lock us into a perpetuity of the exact same thing again and again and again, year after year, or year after year after year. All based on the nature of viruses, which we've always seen. There's nothing new about this, but this is now being utilized to make us fearful of reality, really. In if you essentially, don't fall for it, I say. So if we don't answer back really to the authorities on this, we do face, I believe, I may be wrong, and I hope to be wrong, obviously, with all these things, because of how terrible the outcome would be. and the implications would be. Strain variant turns into the assertion that it's very dangerous on the basis only that it's foreign and rather more infectious than the strain before it. You get yourself a lockdown in your area, and by the way, we're also working on another vaccine as well. And just keep repeating that ad infinitum. Ingenious, don't you think? For the pharmaceutical companies, anyway. I don't know. Maybe you're less cynical than I do and don't believe that that's going to happen. Well, we're watching it happen now. And there's no reason why it can't happen now. It happened again, I mean to say. As I say, the idea of cases and the false PCR tests, which are used to inflate case numbers, COVID-19 case numbers, to give justification for actions such as lockdowns and self-isolations and all the rest of it. And then you've got if you look back on my other videos as well, you'll see also, deaths with COVID-19 being added dishonestly into deaths from COVID-19. And we've got the new excuse or pretext, the new strain, supposedly more infectious, not necessarily more deadly, and another reason to impose control on society. I don't really know how people can't see this, personally. But anyway, again, as you may have heard in my previous videos, I'm not the expert. I'm not an expert. There is an expert though, called Dr. Mike Eden. Ironically, the former vice president of Pfizer, who's ex, I must emphasize, because they're the ones, some of the people feeding us some of these vaccines. But that to one side. He's come out with science. Believe it or not, coronavirus, or the novel coronavirus I should say, or COVID-19 is the other term for it, is actually one of a family of coronaviruses, and which include the common cold, believe it or not. So therefore, and this is according to him, and also all those links will be beneath this video so you can go and look at it for yourselves. This does confer, because they're closely related to each other, seeing as they're in the same family, this does confer immunity to most people, because, well, I don't know how many, but who hasn't caught the common cold, in their life? I don't know the answer to that statistically, but I know I have many times over. I think most people generally do, or have, I should say. So if they're closely related in that sense, what Dr. Eden says is that there should really be a form of immunity already in most people. And also how reinfection is a myth with regard to COVID-19. This kind of makes sense. I mean, coming from a personal anecdotal angle, I know that's not going to be proof, but I did have chicken pox when I was 5, and all these years later I haven't got it again. My body built up an immunity to it, is what was explained to me at the time. But I mean that's and beyond. But I think that tends to be how it works. Once again, any experts out there that think that that's wrong, and say so. But I think me and Dr. Eden are on the same page on that one. So once again, to conclude, what we must argue against is the idea of fake science. Fake science in order to keep us perpetually locked in to a situation where we fear variants of new viruses, despite variants happening all the time, and with influenza, for instance, and not rushing to produce new vaccines against them. Every last vaccine, oh, this one's from here, so it's Brazil in this case with COVID-19. So let's worry about that. Rubbish, don't do it. It's not what we did before, it's not what we do, and it's ascientific. You must understand. And it's just a ploy to make pharmaceutical companies more money by appealing to your credulity if you don't know these things. Imagine yourself. Is this how you lived before? Think about it. Say you're 30 years old. Is this how you lived before? Every year dodging and ducking and diving some virus from somewhere. Oh, the influenza's got a new strain. Let's lock ourselves indoors until we have a vaccine for that new strain. Oh, it might become dangerous. It's very infectious. Come on. Be serious and start to do a bit of thinking about this and do your own research. I think it's probably the bottom line really to this. I hope I've thrown everything in anyway. This is Dexter Black signing out. We're off, and hopefully speak to you later. Bye.